The story begins with the fact that the guy and the girl were lying on the ground, and he asked why she avoids him. He desperately asked her not to leave, but the girl asked to let her go, because she should leave him for a while. The guy, sometimes innocently grumbling tears, asked if he was disgusting to her, but he never heard an answer. He again asked her not to leave, although sometimes he looked at the monster, intentionally to get what he wanted. Here he is, the main character of this novel, because they are now in a prison that was the central place of events. Some time ago, the guard tapped a club in camera 4886, saying that urgent delivery had received her. The pink-haired girl, who had difficulty woke up from sleep, felt that she was cold and then jumped. She was surprised that she woke up in a prison cell, although she remembered for sure that she was falling asleep in her warm house. She began to look around, trying to understand what she was doing here, and most importantly, how she got to this place. At first, she thought it was a dream, because she opened her eyes in an unfamiliar place, which turned out to be a prison camera. But it was not a dream. After a while, the girl realized that she managed to get into the book that she had read recently, and now she is in the body of a character whom she does not even know, and also in a cold prison cell. Usually, immigrants begin their way with luxurious beds, servants, delicious food, and rich estates. But it was she who for some reason woke up on a prison bunk, which is fundamentally different from what she was used to reading. In the end, she, Liana, almost accepted her fate. But why she managed to fall into a tragic novel, romance with the largest number of positive reviews, begins as if it were a great masterpiece. The main character, France, who is a very kind girl, for which he will pay a lot in the future. She is responsible for the misconduct of her father. Therefore, she goes to jail. But in fact, she was innocent. She was always an innocent but curious lady, and once decided to carefully walk around the prison. France went deep into the banned territory, where she met one single and dangerous prisoner. This man was the main character, Heinrich Dorian von Hell, who was very famous among the nobility. The ducal genus Hell has a force transmitted from generation to generation. The same thing concerned Dorian. People from the clan who are not able to cope with this incomparable power, they are sent to prison to Grrrrr, and I am allowed to leave the walls of the prison until the one who is able to withstand the birth power is born. It gives extraterrestrial force comparable to the power of monsters, but deprives the bearers of reason, forcing them to suffer. The main character, having heard his story, decides to free the prisoner from the shackles, but the problem arose. As soon as he was released, he turned into a monster. But what was next limits the age rating. At one point, a very pretty chief villain who adds drama appears. And so the arch of a cruel love triangle begins, where two men are fighting for the heart of France. The protagonist has a difficult character, and the villain, although it is secondary, is in no way inferior in stubbornness. Liana thought that now the plot picture has developed completely, although it did not quite correspond to the genre. As she understood, the families of the protagonist and the villain enmity, they will also display this love triangle. And after some time, Liana got used to the prison, getting acquainted with the guard, and sometimes played with them in cards. Looking around the room, she thought that here the camera, in which the main male character is located. But however, the girl could not see anything, mentally asking, is it really impossible to even make a window? Now she understands why at the beginning they showed the protagonist evil, because the situation around overshadows anyone. At that very moment, Liana laid out on the table a combination of full house, happy to declare Hans that she had won. The prison guard looked at her in shock, asking loudly how a girl could play poker so well. She replied that although she won, he would still receive a reward, so that she could come here more often. The girl thought that there are a lot of nobles in the central part of the prison, so all the guards are knights here. Henry Dorian was very dangerous by the novel, because he was followed by strict observation and hard appeal. But while the plot has not begun, the guard is very supple. To appease and find out something for Liana is very easy. The girl smiled and decided to ask for a favor, after which she pointed to the camera, asking if she could take a look. Hans first refused, after which he asked not to look at him so touched. Besides, the caretaker would come soon. But when Liana handed him a pack of cigarettes, the guard was delighted, allowing her to look there for a short time. Hans was beside himself with joy, after which he gave the keys to a girl who was very pleased with her bribery. Before she inserted the key into the keyhole, the guard asked where she got a cigar's liquor from. Turning around, Liana, with a sweet smile, replied that her brother was sending, after which she added that she would return soon. This part of the prison, where she entered, looks truly frightening. It seemed that they were not completely cleaned here. Wandering with a lamp on the cell, she found on the floor of the lying guy that she did not react to her. Her eyes widened when she realized that she had found the protagonist of the novel, Heinrich Dorian, sleeping on the floor. Looking at him live, the girl blushed. She thought that he was very beautiful and pretty. At that very moment, the guy woke up and wiped his eyes, as the lamp was too bright for a dark camera. Seeing a stranger in front of him, he smiled while she asked how a person could be so beautiful. Suddenly, Dorian published a dog barking, which did not faintly dumbfound Liana. She tried to understand if she was heard. Liana could not believe that the very curse that was mentioned in the book literally turns into a beast. Looking at the guy, she realized that he was not in the best condition, and on her neck there was a limiting print. When the girl wanted to touch him, Dorian suddenly published an evil roar, after which he attacked her. Liana bounced back from the fright, but the protective barrier that arose from nowhere prevented his attack. The girl was still shaking with fear while she watched Dorian beat the indestructible barrier with his fists. She did not expect this, but with irritation, she thought that now it was clear why there was no chain on him. She is simply magical. But this did not cancel the fact that the guy almost bit her and was very frightened. Liana tried to understand what for the men went, because as it could just bite, the future looks like a dog. At that very moment, she wondered why he suddenly became so aggressive, because she simply pulled her hand to him. Suddenly, Dorian began to bark again, and the girl decided to first calm this dog and distract his attention. Noticing a branch next to her, she took her in her hands, after which she began to drive her in front of the guy, and it worked. With undisguised interest, he grabbed her with his teeth, which Liana was again surprised, but for the guy it was the norm. She immediately asked to give the stick back, without even thinking that he would immediately cling to her with his teeth. Suddenly, the girl decided that he understands her, but you need to understand this for sure while she was here. Then she showed him two fluffy balls, fastened with a rope among themselves, asking if he knew what it was. This attracted the attention of Dorian, who was fascinated by letting the stick, carefully looking at the balls. Suddenly, he grabbed the girl by the hand, after which he looked at her with a displeased look, forcing Liana to flinch. When he slowly opened his mouth, the girl asked him to stop, asking if he wanted to bite her again. She asked him to stop, when suddenly the guy crawled back. In shock, I asked what she did with him. The reddened and embarrassed Dorian shouted that she herself had taken up his hand, and before that, he had not bitten anyone. Liana was dumbfounded while watching a sobbing guy and asked herself what was happening here. A few minutes later, Dorian stopped crying, saying that this was his first time, so he was very surprised. Liana asked not to use the phrase for the first time, because misunderstanding may happen. The guy wanted to prove that this is not a misunderstanding, but the girl firmly stated that it was it. At that very moment, Dorian's face was sad, and the guy fell silent, slowly lowering his gaze to the floor. Liana was surprised that he became so after every return of reason, after which she apologized. Dorian was touched, because this is the first time someone apologizes to him. The girl asked him to calm down. Suddenly, she ran to him and grabbed his hands, asking for listening. Then she said that the championship was not important. As someone will appear kinder, such a trifle will immediately be forgotten, because in the future there will be a lot of similar ones. Then she removed her hands, saying that she had not specifically grabbed him, but hoped that he realized what she was talking about. At that very moment, she blushed and looked away, saying that her name was Liana. Now she was very embarrassed. Suddenly, the guard said that time was over. The girl explained to Dorian that she needed to return. She was wondering how much he had already stayed here, in this dark and gloomy place, which could drive crazy. Relying only on the weak light emanating from the corridor, Liana noticed that he was younger than she had expected. She would like to see his face at the moment when she left, but the light in the room was too dull. But a little move. The light from the candle was no longer enough to make out something. Besides, it was necessary to leave quickly. Sometime later, a subordinate ran into the warder's room, hinting that he had important news. The worried guy said that one of the cameras had been committed, and this should be investigated. The man who was engaged in papers specified whether it was a penetration of a special danger to the criminal. Having decided that the guards did not look at this, the man ordered to immediately go and find out who was so brave there. The next day, Liana sat in a common room where all prisoners were in their free time and talked. The more she looked out, the more surprised, because this place was barely reminiscent of a prison, rather, even the opposite. But still it is she. Do not forget that the bulk of the people here are nobles, therefore the conditions are appropriate. Although they are not available to everyone, there are unusual dishes and desserts, walks and classes of their favorite hobbies. Liana had some kind of dissonance in her head, because despite the room, everyone was dressed in the same prison form. The girl shuddered when someone asked to look at this charm, which she first held in her hands. He turned into his head, and she noticed that two girls were discussing aromas from the new collection. It was about spirits. Liana thought that somehow phrases with the meaning of something for the first time very often come to her ears recently. Last night, Dorian with tears in his eyes said that he was the first to sound very ambiguous. You might think that some kind of love story will follow, but this does not happen, because it is limited by the seal. The magical device holds him in prison, and he can leave this place only if you get rid of the shackles. There is only one person who is able to release him. This is the main character of the novel, which is unknown when it appears. Thanks to her, he will be able to leave this place in just 4 years. But when she can do it? Without a concept. Suddenly, Baron Paladis came up to her, who asked why it sighs and whether he dreams of liberation. Liana asked not to talk about liberation, because there is a feeling that she was really some kind of criminal. He asked whether she was against, if he arrived. She asked him to say something in response. After thinking a little, the man replied that if something is, then she could look at his reflection. After all, if he were in her place, he would be happy to reflect every day. The girl replied that there was nothing joyful in this. She turned away displeasedly, calmly asking what he was talking about, because she was the same as all prisoners here. Liana asked to tell something interesting, to which the Pilatus replied that there was recent news about the Dormilits. The girl realized that we were talking about the Duchy of Dormalite, one of the 3 largest dukes of the empire, and the house of the main villain. It will be great, even if after release, she will be able to observe the progress of the plot of this novel from the outside. The man shone his eyes when he stated that the Black Rose of the Empire, Dormalite, had an interesting case the other day. If you believe the rumors, the Dormulites bought jewelry at the underground auction not so long ago. But that's not all. Among these jewelry was tiara, which Her Majesty lost, and now she was in the hands of the Dormilits. Liana immediately thought that if it was tiara of the Empress herself, then the main character found her for sure. As soon as the hearing passed, the imperial family ordered to search for the Dormulite estate, but tiara was not found. Strong doubts and suspicions hung in their direction, yet this Duke of Dormalit, Caesar, is very insidious and cunning. The girl, drinking tea, agreed with the Pallades of his cunning, because it was not for nothing that he is the main antagonist of history. Suddenly, the man said that they were not ending on this rumor, and Liana noticed that he had inflamed directly. He asked, heard or she did a real treasure Dormalite. There is a rumor that Caesar had a sister. Liana knew about the younger sister of the main villain. The character died of an incurable disease before the story began. The Dormulites stole the Empress, as in the original plot, which means that everything goes smoothly. Paladus asked why she would not tell something, and whether she liked the adventure that she spoke of. The girl smiled and answered in the affirmative, thinking that there was not even one window in that place, like here. Then she asked if he knew how to meet with a caretaker in order to ask him about something. That same evening, Liana came to Dorian with food, and with a smile asked if he wanted to go for a walk. But in response, she heard only barking, after which she smiled awkwardly, thinking that he was again in the dog mode. Looking at the barking guy, the girl squeezed his fist, thought that he was even very beautiful and pretty in this image. No matter how much she offers bribes, it will not work to visit this part of the prison every day, only once every 3 days. And now she was very sorry that he did not have a switch, because when she asked to calm down, he did not listen. Suddenly, Dorian calmed down sharply, after which the girl asked him in surprise if he still understood her words, and she decided to ask why he was not talking then, thought that he was like listening, but it seems to have killed at any moment. Then she asked how he relates to bread, because she took a little from the kitchen, feeling as if she had fed a wandering dog. At that very moment, the guy stared at bread with greedy eyes. It was clear that he was deprived of food, and now he was hungry. She did not understand why he was behaving like a dog. If the questions have passed too, she understands. And now, in consciousness, suddenly he choked on, and Liana began to drink it with water, screaming that he would choke if he would swallow food. After a couple of seconds, Dorian blushed sharply and looked away, politely asked the girl to remove her hand. Liana was surprised, after which she smiled, saying that he was drinking so well from her hands, and now, for some reason, he was embarrassed. The guy was dumbfounded by such speeches, after which he asked not to touch him, or she would be responsible for it. Turning away her head, Liana, with an awkward smile, thought that someone else would bear the responsibility, and this is clearly not her. More precisely, the main character, beautiful, kind, which I will free him from prison, in general, an ideal girl. Thanks to her, she may not worry that he would become attached to her, when suddenly Liana thought she was too dark. Prisoners of central prisons bathe in luxury. They are almost always available tasty food, tea drinking, and walks. Everything is done in such a way as to cause inconvenience only to the main character of the novel, because it is unlikely that he dreamed of such a life. Suddenly, she asked if it seemed to him that it was bad here. There is no sunlight, and even very damp. The rest of the prisoners go for a walk once a day, though not paradise on the street. There is fresh air, and he is sitting here. Then Liana decided to ask again. He would not want to go for a walk, because this is the norm for an ordinary criminal. For her, some go boring and monotonously, but inconvenience, and he is doomed to suffer until the main character appears. As if not understanding anything, Dorian decided to ask in response that this, hinting that he has no idea about walking. I replied that it was when you go out and go there. The guy replied that he could not go out, but this was not about that. When asked, he would like to take a walk, if he could. He answered in silence, and Liana took it as a sign of consent. However, she still does not have a plan, because the caretaker must give permission for a walk, otherwise her plan will not be embodied. She heard that it was not so easy to get to him, even if you make a request to meet, but at least see it once. The girl hoped that she would not be detained, only because she was in the underground compartment for no reason. When she went to the office, she told the guard that she requested a meeting, after which she uncertainly called her name. When the guy let her inside, the girl sighed in surprise, not expecting that everything seems easier than she expected. When the girl entered the office, she was surprised to notice that there was no one, deciding that he might have left for a short while. Liana could not believe that for the sake of such a thing, she requested a meeting with the caretaker, as if it were something high. She knew that there was one huge and indestructible system by which this place is managed. First, the hierarchy is guarded, consisting of knights of low and medium ranks, which only fulfills orders. Above them, the imperious knight managers. Then there are management personnel, and the most important of them is the head of the prison. He also plays one of the main roles of history. He will unite with the Duke Dormulite and will help him. A side story will be described for what, if she remembers correctly, he was in love with some girl. The character was popular with women because he was a pure guy, but with a villainous character. Suddenly, someone entered the office and asked who was here. Liana asked if he had a meeting too. Then she introduced herself, explaining that she was here to meet with the head of the prison, but immediately froze. She could not understand what Renag Taus Valtes, a secondary character and one of the country's marquises, is doing here. But also, as it turned out, he was a prison overseer. A man in a serious tone stated that he heard that she wanted to see him. She tried with her to show that she was surprised, pretending that she always knew everything, and then said that she had a request. Then the girl asked if all the prisoners of this prison had equal rights. Renag replied that at first glance, yes. Liana was surprised that he was not crafting at all. One would think that she had already lost. But this is far from the case. From this moment on, her main argument for permission is in progress, which was supposed to help her succeed. According to the rules, if the prisoner is not convicted of a serious criminal offense, he has the right to walk. When she dangled with other prisoners, She found out that a lone guy was in the central prison dungeon. They say that there are not even windows in his cell. Renag tensed, uncertainly answering that they have such a prisoner. Liana added that she heard that he was not allowed to go for walks, but he did not commit criminal offenses. Looking at her with a severe gaze, the man asked if she wanted to say that she was sorry for this prisoner. She was afraid of his evil gaze, but she answered in the affirmative, adding that she came here to discuss this. Suddenly, Renag said that she was a very kind person. The girl was surprised, because of which she was a little confused with excitement. She said that when she hears this about people, she always recalls her younger brother, so she cannot pass by. The overseer asked if he was akin to her younger brother. Liana also agreed in surprise. She did not know if she had a younger brother, but the nobles even consider the relatives of the fifth and sixth knee close. The fact that this is precisely Dorian should not interfere, and hardly anyone can suspect the connection between them. After all, the relationship between Dorian and Renaga worsened only when the main villain appeared. Kaiser. Liana asked to let the poor fellow go out with fresh air, knowing that he would certainly refuse. But when she heard an affirmative answer, she was shocked, and Renag promised to take into account her request. Liana was dumbfounded that everything turned out so simple, because it was confident that he would refuse and would not want to listen to her. The man confidently stated that for the sake of her brother and father, he would do everything she wishes, despite the risks. The girl shuddered, not realizing what all this means. However, she tried not to show a look and agreed with his words. At the moment, Dorian is caught as a dangerous criminal, but it cannot be such that Renag does not know about it. However, the question arose why he was ready to go to this, because of his father and brother. The problem was that she did not know about the family. The question arose of who they are and what they are doing that, thanks to them, she can ask for any overcome. Liana thoughtfully suggested that she had an influential family with whom even the chief of prison behaves kindly. Renag said that a medium-rank knights will certainly be presented to this criminal during walks. Her brother asked to take any measures in accordance with her requests, so he could not ignore it. Their meeting was over, and he held it, while Liana tried to realize that it was only because of some request. When the man brought her to the door, he stopped and politely kissed her hand, as if she was an honorary guest. Then he stated that even if he had not made a promise to her brother, he would still fulfill her request as it should be. When the girl went out into the corridor, she heard Renag finally said that he was looking forward to a new meeting. However, Liana heard a threat in these words, thinking that he would kill her if she once again appeared on his threshold. On trembling legs, she trudged into the cell, thinking that she would definitely not stand another meeting with him. The next day, it was not possible to use permission, since the rain poured like a bucket all day. In the end, the image of the kindest lady was not needed, and the overseer did not seem to understand that she knew him, and this is good. Liana decided that enough to think about it. The main thing is that in the end, she received what she wanted even easier than expected. A little later, she again came to see Dorian. The guard was surprised that she had come to him today. Suddenly, Hans warned that it is dangerous today, so it should be careful, because the prisoner is troubled. Liana thanked him for the warning, after which she found a lot of puddles on the floor. It was because of the rain. Feeling the smell of mold, the girl shuddered when she heard an evil roar, thinking that he was more aggressive than usual. Then she drew attention to Dorian, realizing that he was scared of water, looking at how he trembled with the sound of drops. Liana knew where the guy got such a fear of water, since his father always said that he was a shame on their family and an ordinary dog. Dorian was all the time tortured with water, as a result of which the fear of water developed, as well as a feeling of worthlessness. The main character should be released from this, but it was not known when she would arrive and save him from here. And he realizes how strong. At that very moment, she covered him with a towel and asked if he liked the bell. The guy was surprised when the girl smiled and rang into the bell, saying that it was much better than the sound of rain. Then she began to pour sweets in her hands, saying that she brought this, thinking that he might like this. Looking at his contented face, Liana thought that it was good that she brought a lot, because he had enough for him for a long time. The girl began to wipe his head with a towel, saying that he was all wet, so she will dry him a little. Suddenly, she thought that in such damp she could get sick, and suddenly the guy waved his hand in front of her face. Liana fell on her back. Not understanding anything, feeling the pain, she tried to breathe air and open her eyes. Suddenly, she saw a rose on Dorian's chest. They say about her that you need to find a couple until your rose has faded. The girl thought that wrong thoughts were visiting her, after which it seemed to her that he had become even closer. When the awareness of what was happening reached Dorian, he sharply bounced back, embarrassedly asking what it was. Liana decided to quarrel, and smiling, replied that he had to ask him, because he was the first to reach for her. The guy blushed, after which he covered his mouth with a towel, said that the blanket was warm, so he was no longer scared. Assessing that everything is in order with him, the girl said that she would already go, when suddenly Dorian decided to ask her name. Having named her name, the girl left the camera, waving her hand in parting, while the guy looked after her with admiration. A few days later, the rain continued to go, while Liana decided to stop meeting with Dorian for a while. Sitting in her cell, the girl looked behind the bars, asking herself when the rain would finally end and the sun comes out. She still cannot go from what happened that day, but this was not the only reason. She stopped going to Dorian due to the fact that she recently had not received a single letter and parcel. I didn't even receive a letter with an explanation. The first thing she saw in front of her, opening her eyes, is a letter from her brother. She asked for something, and in response to her letter, always came the desired and new pure sheet for wishes. The girl did not even immediately realize that a certain brother of Liana sent these handouts, about whom she even knows nothing. And now she had nothing more to bribe security, since the letters no longer came, which made it very difficult to meet. Typically, the letter was at best on the second day of the month, and at worst for the fifth. But 12 days have passed. Perhaps something happened to her brother, or she asked too much, because of which she began to annoy with her requests. The next day, Liana was still thinking about this, when suddenly the fit of the Pilates asked if she had something. The girl replied that nothing special, after which she asked what interesting it is he wants to talk this time. He asked if she had heard about the Countess of Andrea. It was a woman who, during a rim of hysteria, fainted. The man replied that it was not just an attack. At that moment, she received a news that Count Andrea was dead. As it turned out, the Duke d'Ormelet was directly to blame for everything, because it was beneficial to him, like no other. Liana did not understand, and here the main villain, the Pilatus, explained that the Count of Andrea was the right hand of the Archduke Henry. The girl knew that the red rose is Henry and the black rose d'Ormelet, enemies with a very long and bloody history of enmity. Count Andrea was on the side of the relative of the protagonist, while the second side is the side of the main villain. The deep hatred of the parties is reinforced by the struggle for the heart of the main character, after which the confusion begins. As a result, the Chaser kills the father of Dorian, his supporters and friends, on which the conflict of the two families ends. It is funny that Dorian did not care about his father, but he still hated Chemiser and made him his enemy. The author will definitely play with the relationships of the characters. At first it will be fun, and then quite the opposite. The Pilatus added that the Chaser is very smart, but he can't even believe that he committed such stupidity as the murder of the Count. Archduke Henry, without even setting a commotion, immediately ordered the knight to get evidence for d'Ormelet. At that very moment, the man solemnly stated that Chemister was now wanted and was hiding somewhere. Liana thought that he was already considering the plan in some secluded place, but most likely he had already thought out everything. Suddenly, the guard's loud voice said that the time was over, and all prisoners should disperse the cameras. Rising, the Pilatus asked what happened to her. You replied that you did not receive a letter from the family, although you were really waiting. The man realized that we were talking about a letter from his brother, after which he said that perhaps something urgent happened. Lying in her cell, Liana decided that even her family left her. But what she then did after leaving prison? Meanwhile, a Shizé, who was sitting in front of two bodies covered with blood, said with a smile that he missed the vine. The next day, when the girl went into the living room, Pilatus immediately ran up to her, saying that fresh news had come. The offender, who settled the discord in the family of Count Andrea, is definitely, and the Duke of Henry is currently seriously wounded. His guesses were faithful. The culprit, Chaser d'Ormelet, even if he did not act on his own, through someone. Suddenly, Liana recalled that before she killed Dorian's father, Chaser made several attempts to attempt. The old man suffered from the consequences for some time until his last attack finally took his life. And if she is not mistaken, this event will happen very soon. But even no one even guesses about it. Pilatus said that it was good that the criminal was Dormalite, because in their prison there are a lot of Kaiser supporters. If he is suspected of committing a crime, the whole crowd of followers will break off the chain and a rebellion will begin. Then he added that the hiding duke finally returned. He would like to once meet him. Suddenly, he noticed that the girl was left her place. Liana, with a smile, said that she had to go somewhere. Then she asked why he wanted to meet with him, because she would even prefer not to see him from afar. The girl explained that, in any case, it seems to her that it was not so easy to see him. The man agreed with her. A few minutes later, Liana overtook the guard in the corridor, after which he held out her hand, in which the letter lay. The girl thought that this was a pleasant surprise, because usually sheets are empty, but this time something was written. Entering the camera, Liana began to read a letter where there was only one question. How was the road, sister? She was surprised by the brief content, noticing a beautiful handwriting, after which she decided that she needed to answer. After thinking a little, Liana again decided to ask to send more alcohol, cigarettes, and luxury items. Having received a letter, his brother immediately ordered to send alcohol to Kambraki, but more, because the desire to sister is a law. The next day, the rain finally stopped. It was very good, but Liana was clearly doing something wrong. Now she was in the office of the head of the prison with a fork and a knife in her hand, glancing at the delicious sweets. Renag asked if she wanted, but she replied that he would try everything now, asking herself why she was all. 10 minutes ago, they told her that the overseer was looking for her, but upon her arrival, she was waiting for an unexpected and pleasant surprise. The girl asked why he called her. At that very moment, he opened the box and said that gifts had arrived for her. She asked if this was from her brother, to which she heard a disgusting answer, although she thought that he was supposed to send not this. With a serious look, the man said that her older brother also recalled that one could not reveal his last name. Liana thought with surprise that now it is clear why everyone was calling her by name, but it is not clear why it was. She thanked him for his care, because she is sure that her brother and father were also very grateful. Renag was surprised. He stated that she was very good, unlike them. The girl considered such a statement offensive, but said nothing. Liana thought she had to smile, after which she stated that they were actually good and caring people. Renag said that the rain stopped, so the prisoner she spoke about will soon go out for a walk. But, as agreed, with knights attached to him, hearing this, the girl immediately replied that she understood everything. In response to this, the overseer smiled, and Liana did not expect that someday she could see his smile. However, it seemed to her that he was hinting that she ate everything to the last crumb, or soon could never smile. Going into the corridor, she was surprised to think that in the plot in front of her lover, he would be that still a darling. The next day, Sally pulled himself up and said that the weather was too good, and they had not walked for a long time. She decided that it was possible to sunbathe, and Liana said with a smile that even with a tan, she would look great. Suddenly, the girl stopped smiling and pointed behind her, asking that the knights of the elite regiment had forgotten here. She heard that they were substituted only for especially dangerous criminals, apparently this boy among them. When they pushed Dorian, Sally decided that this was not a walk, after which she decided to ask the knights about everything. Liana thought with discontent that it could hardly be called a walk, because it was no better than sitting in the cell. Suddenly, she noticed that he was looking in her direction, but at the same moment the guy blushed and, embarrassed, turned away. The girl was shocked that he ignored her. At that time, Sally went up to her and said that she had returned. She went to the knights. They only replied that he was involved in a crime with the use of magic. At that very moment, she looked at Liana and asked why she suddenly began to look so irritated. The girl thought that she tried so hard for him, and in the end, ignore, so you need to go and find out what was the matter. When she caught up with him, she asked why he blushed and was on her knees, because she even did nothing. Suddenly, the guy grabbed his cheeks and asked if she wanted to say something that he would do something with him because of this. When Liana, as I realized that everything was in order with him, she replied that if he did not want to explain, then it was not necessary. Suddenly, Dorian grabbed her hand, and with an impending gaze asked why she did not come to him for so long. Dorian almost cried when he said that he was waiting for her, but she still did not come, and he decided that she left him forever. Liana did not want to say to him that she simply had nothing left to pay for the passage, since her brother did not send anything. The guy asked if the last time she came here, the girl asked in response, where he got it. She felt that his hands were trembling. Perhaps he was so afraid to remain abandoned by everyone again. Rubbing her neck from hopelessness, she asked herself how to remain indifferent to him. The girl asked if he liked the walk, because she was her merit, and she worthy of getting a little thanks. After that, she began to wipe his tears, offering the next time to go for a walk together, so that he was calmer. From such close contact, Dorian blushed and asked what to call her. She replied that she could be called by name. Suddenly, she stated that she would wake up to walk him, then let her call the mistress, but immediately clarified that she was joking. Then she said that she had to, asking not to dare to ignore her anymore, after which she went to the exit with a smile. The next day, the guard greeted Liana, asking if she requested a joint walk with the prisoner. Then he said with a smile that it was very nice of her to take care of such a dangerous criminal. The girl went to the guy and greeted, after which she asked if it was convenient for him. He replied that everything was fine. She dared to suggest that everyone here believes that Dorian was convicted of using the forbidden magic. Nevertheless, only Renag knows about his personality. As a friend, she paid attention to his wrists. These were unusual shackles. At that very moment, the knight asked if she was curious, after which he pulled the rope, pulled Dorian. He explained that these shackles against criminals with magic, and the rope on them suppresses any mana. Liana smiled and thanked for the explanation, thinking that this guard was a frantic crazy person because it hurts him. The man said that she should not show this. Nevertheless, the scene is not just for seeing, especially for a noblewoman. The girl continued to smile, but inside herself was very angry at the guard who behaved like that. She decided to ask if he was in order, after which she looked at Dorian and immediately realized that something was wrong. Suddenly, the guy rushed forward, after which he hit one guard with all his strength, knocking him down. When everyone noticed his embittered expression, they immediately stated that he had a seizure and something needs to be done with it. The knights asked the lady to move away, as the prisoner had a jump in mana, but it is necessary to remain calm. Anton, the captain of the guard, ordered the rope to activate. Another guard immediately pulled it, ordering him to stop. But nothing happened, which is why the guy screamed worriedly that the rope did not work and could not stop him. He tried several times to stop Dorian while he fought with the knights, but everything was in vain. Suddenly, the prisoners waved his hand, throwing the guard towards his comrades, surprising all his strength. Liana barely had time to dodge when the flying knight rushed past her, while the others tried to stop him. She thought that the main character is an innocent puppy, and he is a real beast, but it is not clear whether he is in order. Suddenly, the girl discovered that right under her was the same rope, which she immediately grabbed. She doubted that this would work, but Anton was surprised to notice that the magic shackles were working again. Then, the man with an orderly tone asked her to order him to stop, but the girl was too scared. At that very moment, Dorian seemed to look at her, and she did not understand what kind of gaze that he had just looked at her. From fright, she fell when the guy ran sharply at her, and the guard loudly asked her to just shout the team. She could not do this, and was already ready to accept her fate, when suddenly someone knocked Dorian from his feet. Someone ordered him to sit while Liana thought that he was not a real dog, and such orders would not work. Meanwhile, Anton loudly asked everyone not to lose vigilance, and continue to give the commands until he calmed down. At that very moment, the girl pulled the rope and began to give him various teams that he began to fulfill. Liana tried to understand what was happening at all, because it was not mentioned about such a novel, and Dorian continued to somersault. The knights watched them with the same surprise, trying to understand what kind of stupid situation this situation unfolded. The girl ordered him to sit, after which she loudly asked not to scratch his ear with her foot, asking who taught him this. She had a panic when she asked herself at what point the main character really became a dog. Then she realized that she had a real talent for training dogs, although it was an ordinary guy. One of the guards asked if she was a witch, but she answered if he would be here if she were a witch. Liana thought that happiness was nearby, because only the extra spectators were not enough for this performance. Suddenly, Dorian pulled her sleeve and pulled plaintively. The girl decided to give him a couple more teams. She did not understand why the protagonist became completely like a beast, because this was not described in the book. At that very moment, the knight again approached her, said that she needed to meet with the overseer Stuart. However, now he is not in place, so now it is better for her to return to herself when he appears. She will be taken to him. Liana replied that she understood everything, after which she asked with interest what they would do with this prisoner. And the guards first should find out why the shackles did not work. The girl asked if something like that happened before. He replied that they first use data of equipment, but he never heard interruptions. If you think about it, she feels weak in the morning and suffocates a little. Perhaps this is somehow connected. Noticing her strange expression, Anton asked if she was in order. She smiled and answered in the affirmative. Suddenly, when the knight came too close, Dorian hugged Liana from behind, after which he began to growl to the guard. The girl with a displeased look removed his hand, after which she ordered to lie, and the guy immediately completed the order. Anton said with a smile that he had to lead him back into the cell, after which he asked if she would help with this. She did not really like this idea, but she agreed, after which she noticed how Dorian pressed her hand. When they returned to the cell, Hans asked her to return more. She agreed, and then went to Dorian. Sitting in front of the guy, she hugged her knees, and without looking at him, sincerely asked for forgiveness for what had happened. She did not know that things would take such a turn when she asked him to pull him out into the street to take a little walk. Having lowered her head, she asked if he liked at least a little bit, expecting him to condemn her for this idea. She did not know how, under those circumstances, he could like, but maybe she experienced one positive emotion. Then she went up and stroked his head, and the guy said that he liked it. She did not need to apologize. He asked not to look so closely, and the girl said that she thought when his mind would return to him. Liana smiled and asked not to be careful in relation to her. She still helped with his riot today. The girl decided to ask if he remembers everything that was happening to him in the beast mode. He replied that, in general, yes. Blinding and look away, Dorian said that he did not remember only minor details, but otherwise everything is clearly. Remember what I did when I got with the dog. It's like the next morning after a booze to remember what I did yesterday. Then the girl came closer to him and asked if it was that he wants to continue walking with her. Having covered him with a blanket, she added that she was glad that she was not mistaken in her actions, after which she asked her to smile. Seeing his embarrassed gaze, Liana asked if he liked it when she touches, and whether she was touching her. Rubber even harder, Dorian said that he was satisfied with everything, after which he asked to promise that she would come again. Turning away, Liana replied with malice that she would not promise anything, because now he wants a lot. At the same time, in the capital, where the Renaga cabinet was located, the man read a report that the prisoner was wounded by Liana. The frightened subordinate replied that this was not entirely true, because according to the report, the girl was just tired. Dissatisfied with such an explanation, the man slammed loudly on the table, after which he asked him to immediately explain. But before he had time to open his mouth, when suddenly a knight entered the office, announcing that Chairman Love Dormelit had arrived at him. Renag has noticeably tensed, after which he replied that he himself would meet him, in addition to asking to send Liana of drugs. Before leaving, he asked to remake his schedule so that in a few days he could return. A few days later, Liana was on the street while walking with Dorian, and asked him to catch the ball. When the guy returned with the ball in his mouth, the girl stroked his head, after which she called him smart. He likes to get praise, while Liana remembered how she was asked if she could help in walks. They have not yet found other ways to contain, and walks should continue on an ongoing basis. Although after all that turmoil, she thought they would cancel the walks. But I was glad that this did not happen. Pulling Dorian by the cheek, Liana thought that the order was by order, but this still delivered a lot of problems to guard. Although they could forget that Dorian is a man, not a relationship with him as a dog that needs to be walked. In the end, she agreed to help, and now she was next to Dorian, surrounded by knights. Anton came up to her and thanked for his help, added that he would put a word to the caretaker about her merits. By the way, he mentioned that he would jump up to them today. Liana was surprised, because she was just thinking about meeting Renag. As a friend, Dorian pulled her sleeve, who woke up today quite early, and looked very embarrassed. She invited him to sit down next to her because it is not very convenient to sit on Earth, even being a dog. Without wasting time, the guy jumped up, after which he sat down right on her knees, because of which he blushed and was embarrassed even more. Liana stated that she had in mind to sit nearby. Dorian shuddered, after which he loudly apologized to her for it. The guy said that today it was somehow cool, after which he grabbed the girl by the hand and changed with her places. Once on his knees, Liana laughed and asked that he thought out, calling him a cunning. At the same time, Renag, who watched them, was asked if he should go to the teachings today. He replied that he was already walking, after which he turned and went away from the place where the guy and the girl were. A little later, the girl was already in the office of the overseer, who politely offered her a cup of tea. The man said that he was surprised when he was told that she made a real pet out of the prisoner. Liana was shocked by such a statement, when she suddenly heard the question if she and her brother were happening here. By answering negatively, she added that she did not think that he is in the know, and even does not know about how she lives. In the fantasies of Liana, brother probably thinks that she is now an alcoholic, since she only asks for alcohol and cigarettes. She does not even know her relatives, and will be able to find out about it only by leaving prison, but not earlier. Renag said that if she did not change his mind about her desire, then walks will be allowed in the future. The girl was surprised, because the prisoner arranged a membrane, but the man replied that all because she wants it. To rub or smile, said that he was still amazed that she treated him like a dog. Liana mentally asked if he had fun, because he did not forget to ask about the opinion of her brother, whom she did not know. It seems that he considers it to be granted that literally everyone treats Dorian without proper respect. The girl said that, not to say that between her families and this prisoner, a particularly good relationship. Renag agreed, because he was also not poorly surprised that she was really interested in marriage in the name of the union. The girl froze. I do not understand what it is about, although he knows that at the moment the nobles of the empire are divided into two groups, and the Henrik fraction, to which the family of Henry and their followers belong, as well as the faction of the main villain. Renag as a representative of his family on the neutral side, but as a person supports the Dormulites. She was strange to hear this, and even from Renag. Now for Liana, this looked too outrageous. Suddenly, she realized with horror that the Liana family belongs to the Dormulit faction, that is, the main villain. While the girl was in complete shock, Renag asked with interest how to spend her time prisoners. The man explained that if she likes informal conversations, he can also arrange such with her alone. A little later, walking along the corridor, Liana thought that he did not understand what exactly he had in mind. Meanwhile, Renag could not believe that he had offered such a vines, because it was he who in love with her in love. He previously told her that he hopes that she would be comfortable with them, because the most important thing is her safety. And while she remembers this, she can do everything that she wants, without fear of any punishment or something like that. Liana did not expect that there are so many supporters of Dormulit in prison, that it was obviously not very good for Dorian. It turns out that the Liana family also belongs to the side of the villains, and now many inexplicable things have become clear. Now it is clear why Renag is condescending to her. Despite his nature, they are also comrades in atrocities. But good always wins evil, so you can already write a will, because it is unlikely to be a winner. Looking out the window, the girl noticed that it was raining again. It was like some kind of misfortune that interfered with her. Dorian probably sits again and tremble. She thought that maybe she would look at him for a while to calm him down. When Liana reached the place, she froze with surprise, feeling something unusual near his camera. She could not understand what was happening, feeling an unusually strange atmosphere, but there was nowhere to retreat. When she came up, Hans met her, greeted the girl. He explained that another visitor was ahead of her today. Liana asked worriedly, "Something bad happened," after which she began to glance towards the camera. The guard said that she would better refuse to visit, but she replied that everything was in order, because everything would remain secret. Hans was ambiguously at the cigarettes that Liana handed him, simultaneously saying that she could be trusted. Then she went to the camera, feeling that from there was some kind of smell that was very caustic. When the girl went inside, it was shocked, seeing Dorian lying on the floor in a pool of her own blood. Liana called him, and the guy immediately heard her, after which he looked at her with a smile and yelled joyfully. She remembered that in the book, there was a mention that the protagonist was often subjected to violence by his father. It was clear that he was here, after which she passed through the barrier, and Dorian rushed at her with his arms. Liana reciprocated, hugging him, and thinking that it is impossible to leave him like that, because now he is very painful. The guards will definitely not provide medical care. Pushing him away, she asked the guy to wait a bit. The girl ran to her camera, simultaneously trying to understand what to do, because she has no medicine. When she arrived at the place, she immediately realized that her only way out was to write a letter to her brother to help. She can't and does not want to go to others, so now he can hope that he can answer as quickly as possible. She briefly stated in a letter so that her brother would send more medicines that are suitable for the treatment of various wounds. Surprisingly and fortunately, after a few days, everything arrived, and she received much more than she asked. Hans said that he would miss her with this, but before that, he decided to ask the question why she was taking care of him so much. Liana did not understand how it could be otherwise, because she could not just look at how this person suffers. When she went inside, she sighed heavily, because she did not want to see Dorian in such a meager position. At that very moment, the guy rose from the floor, asking who came to him. Lena replied that Dorian recognized her. Suddenly, the girl noticed that her eyes were damaged, and this is an unusual wound, and it is not known whether the medicine would help. Crouching in front of him, she said that she came to heal him. It may hurt, but will have to suffer a little. After 10 minutes, Liana wiped under her forehead, thinking that she wiped all the blood, although it took a lot of time. Now she had to apply a healing ointment, after which she asked the guy to let the guy know if she was hurt. Suddenly she smiled, adding that there is no sense in this, because she still would not stop applying her. A little later, Dorian looked much better and nicer, with girlish plasters and hairpins, asking why she laughs. With an awkward look, the girl replied that all because he was more beautiful than she, but Dorian said that it was not true. He wanted to add something else, but he stumbled, while Liana and the cunning decided to clarify whether she was more beautiful. This made the guy turn red, but the girl decided to throw his jokes to the side, asking him to look at her. Having examined it, she thought that she had applied everything well, but the question remained what to do with the rest of the medicines. There were even medicines for colds and even burns. She asked for the treatment of wounds, but her brother sent everything that was possible. He seemed to Liana very caring, because of which she felt that the level of attachment to him grew greatly. Then she turned towards Dorian and said that she had almost completed treatment. Only her shoulders and neck remained. When the girl touched his chest, she asked to stop breathing so hard, but did not know whether she could touch her here. A little earlier, Cheeser, that he was sitting in his office, read a letter to Liana, who asked to send medicines for the wounds. Putting the letter to his face and breathing in his aroma, he asked himself, maybe he would look in Cambers sometimes. And now Liana, who touched the wounds on Dorian's chest, with an awkward look asked to stop making these sounds already. Wiping sweat from her forehead, the girl said that they had finally finished, and he only had to drink painkillers. The guy with a surprised look asked whether it was necessary to take the medicine when it was bad. She was shocked by this question. Then she began to explain that first, to pick up the glass, swallow the pill, and then drink water. But even after the instructions, Dorian did not succeed in taking a pill, since he did not understand how to do it. But it is necessary to teach him this. So she grabbed a bottle from his hands to slightly change the tactics. Liana said that it is so. For the first time she would help him, since he does not go out to do it on his own. She asked him to open his mouth, but carefully, adding that he could press her finger a little so that it was convenient. With a smile, the girl said that now she would put a pill on the back of his mouth, and you can't spill it out. Looking at his embarrassed reaction, the girl grabbed him by the cheeks, after which she asked to go out on her, surprising Dorian. Suddenly pulled away, asking him to forget, and then asked if he drank all the water, asking him to give her a bottle. Understanding her inappropriate behavior, she stated that she went, after which she wished him recovery and left. Dorian sadly asked her to wait, but she apologized. I will explain that today it should go early. The next day, she sat on the bench, trying to understand why she did this yesterday, and what she found on her. Bending a little, she decided that she had to think about something else, about something good, that she would distract her. Suddenly, she noticed that in the letter, there was a note from her brother, whom she found far from right away, which was strange. There, with a quick handwriting, the question was whether his dear sister was sick. He always worries about her and misses her very much. And in the end, there was a question whether he should visit her. Liana was dumbfounded by the fact that he could come to her. Prisoners usually do not get along with families, because as a rule, they are to blame for people get here. She remembered how Sally said that when she got out of here, she would definitely give up his brother. Some reconciled with the fact of legend here, and some did not. There was a place for both anger and acceptance. The prisoners experience such feelings for relatives. Perhaps the brother behaves cute to her because of pity. Then the girl asked herself with interest in what was originally her brother, and her brother was a relationship before her hit here. While she was talking to herself, she did not notice that behind her, someone was hiding behind a tree and followed her. A month later, Dorian's wounds were completely cured, so Liana once again decided to visit the guy. Each time he was very glad to see her. The girl said that today he brought him the cookies that he liked. Suddenly, she noticed that the seal on his neck looks more than usual, but does not know why. Almost 3 months have passed from her first meeting with the main positive hero, but whether the seal will become even more. When one cookies fell to the floor, Dorian tried to eat him, but Liana immediately stopped him, closing her mouth with her hand. She explained that this should not be eaten, asking Dorian to try to preserve the remnants of his human dignity. Seeing that the guy was upset, she asked not to build her eyes here, because he would not achieve anything at all. Suddenly, she showed him a book, asking him to see what she has, and offering to engage in his development. To begin with, it will be reasonable to simply say words with him. He still does not know how to read. But he continued to bark. Unable to stand it, the girl began to stretch his cheeks, saying that he was not even trying to do anything. Then she decided to calculate his fairy tale, starting to tell that the girl met her damned prince. The prince bit the dragon, after which his face turned black. His clothes caught fire with a bright flame, like a huge torch. Looking at his reaction, she was surprised that a couple of minutes ago he could barely sit still. Now he listened carefully. She continued, saying that the girl asked the prince whether he was sick with him. He replied that nothing hurts. Then the girl cried because of the prince's words. Ask what the principal is feeling now. He probably hides his pain. After that, the girl defeated the evil dragon. Then she took the prince by the hand of his curse. There was no trace. If you think about it, Dorian is a prince from this fairy tale, only not locked in a castle, but in a cage, which was a little worse. And their main character is this fallen aristocrat, that he will also get rid of curses with his princess. Then she decided to ask if he knew that she has an older brother who would soon come to the prison to visit her. She was wondering if he would be as sympathetic as Dorian, once bad, then hope that at least beautiful. She really was very interested in how he looks, but Dorian probably should not be acquainted with him. Having asked the guy to eat the last cookie, she suggested that her brother would pull her out. They would just make a visit. Then she got to her feet, with a smile that she had to go, after which she said goodbye to the guy with cookies in her mouth. At that moment, her thoughts were only about her brother, while Dorian looked sadly at the girl who was moving away from him. She herself wondered when she could get out of this prison, because she does not even know what she was sitting for. A few days later, the device promised to visit her, but so far this did not happen, which was why Liana began to worry. Really, these were only words. Recently, she cannot think about anything else, except for this promise. Noticing the puddle, she looked at her reflection, saying that if outwardly he looked like her, then he just handsome. Still, Liana is really beautiful, but it cannot be such that she is the only beautiful family member. In general, the villain does not go with pink hair, so it turns out that Liana has passed safety standards. Suddenly, she looked down, deciding that she needed to lower her expectations, because anything can be expected from her brother. He was not nearby when Liana's heart stopped fighting. For the first time in this body, she opened her eyes in a prison infirmary. The body of Liana was so weak that after the words about a heart attack, she immediately fainted from the shock. And only a few hours later, she opened her eyes again, after which she found that she was already in a prison cell. Interestingly, after an attack, she was never bad, and the girl discussed for a long time about this situation. After awakening, she immediately realized that the real Liana had died, as if someone had whispered to her in her ear. At the same moment, she thought that just continued to live as if nothing had happened, waiting for the end of the deadline. There was a feeling that something incredible outside her prison was waiting for her, and this feeling still does not leave her. Suddenly, someone approached her from behind and said that she looked bored. Raising her head, Liana saw the guy. She saw him for the first time, and the color of his shape was a different color. He said that he was concluded from another building. If you look at this, then prisoners are really many times more today than usual, which is understandable. The guy in glasses asked not to be afraid, because he did not intend to harm her, after which he introduced himself to Grrrr. The girl shuddered while the guy said that he wanted to meet her somehow, and this moment came. Liana immediately found out about the secondary character of the book, because it was he who helped Dorian escape from prison. The girl looked at the guard, and Grrrr said that she looks very tense, asking to relax. A lot of security went on a business trip with the overseer, so there is almost no surveillance for a walk. He was surprised that she was shugging him, explaining that the head of their corps personally selects people who can be left. Cutting himself with an index finger on the forehead, the guy added that therefore only adequate people can be chosen. Before that, he saw her only from afar. By the way, he really liked watching a person's training. Liana was suspicious to keep him a distance, answering that she was not available for other buildings. Grrrr said that he did not want to disclose this, but recently he fled from prison for a while, and then he saw. In the novel, Grrrr was not just a left-handed man that he helped Dorian escape. His role was much more. He was his right hand and a faithful assistant who pretended to be a criminal exclusively for the accomplishment of the plan. But first of all, he is the supreme mage from the Grrrrs, who was here on a special task. The guy said that he was sincerely interested in her when he saw that strange young man, and in fact, he is a sorcerer. He suggested that she knows about the tendency of sorcerers to pay attention to various curious things for them. Liana asked, "Are not the magicians in a separate prison? And if he is true a magician, he would not have a torn about it." At that very moment, Grrrr leaned toward her and asked her whisper why he would not. Because no one except her knows this. From this second, the guard will not remember anything that happened in the last 5 minutes, because he took care of them. He will simply tell her something fun about the prisoner, about which she experiences and spends time with him. Looking at him, Liana thought that the novel described that the character of this person was not as simple as it seems. Grrrr said that there is a curse that turns him into a beast. It is old. Ordinary people did not even hear about this. The few know about the curse of the family of Henry. It is clear why he explains to her, but she already knows everything about it. The girl decided to take interest mentally asks why he tells her about it. Grrrr added that when he becomes an animal, he could not say a word like a human, and this is inconvenient. So he often gives awakening to those who suffer from such curses as a temporary measure of treatment. Naturally, he takes responsibility for this. Liana asked why she had this information. The guy realized that she was interested. He continued, saying that based on his long observations, her prisoner had not yet awakened to the end. If nothing is done, he will sow chaos on a permanent basis by turning into a monster without realizing it. Then the girl realized that he could not talk normally, not because of a long stay outside the society, but in the book, even in the guise of a monster, but still spoke human language. Perhaps this is because of Grrrr. The girl asked what he wants from her, because she doubts that he came to just talk about Dorian's diagnosis. The guy replied that he was a curious girl, and he wants her to satisfy his magical interest. Grrrr answered with a smile in the affirmative, adding that he is a magician, that he knows the medicine for the awakening of Dorian, and she is the one who should feed this medicine for the animal. Liana was dumbfounded and at the same time did not understand anything. He had not studied anything for so long that his hands were itching. At the same second, a ball of energy began to be created in his hands. Liana frowned, thinking that he was saying so, but he needed the spell to come to Dorian. However, now she did not understand why because she was sure that he had a lot of opportunities without it. The girl did not believe that the point was only that she was the most affordable option that would not refuse him help. And he was strangely aggressive, and she did not like it. So she asked why she would do this. Leaning closer, The guy whispered with a smile that then he could fulfill any request in return. The opportunity to enlist the help of a magician appears infrequently. A good magic spell is now worth its weight in gold. The girl thought that the deal is tempting, but whether she could really use this spell someday. She is sure that as soon as she leaves the prison, she will heal without worries and problems. So she decided to abandon the offer. But Gear asked to imagine how Dorian would stop eating from the floor, and in general, he would cease to cause problems.